Russia appears to be rubbing salt into Ukraine's wounds, openly flaunting the targets it says were struck after a sweeping assault across 6 major Ukrainian cities. After an all-day bombing campaign against Kyiv, Putin's forces reportedly unleashed coordinated air, land and sea strikes on several major Ukrainian urban centers. Russia's massive attack comes amid reports claiming that Putin is considering the possibility of a so-called mini-nuclear attack against Ukraine. Ukraine's oil refineries, key ports and drone assembly plants are feared to have been destroyed or severely damaged in the latest Russian offensive. Russia struck oil refineries and major logistics centers in Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, along with key facilities across 5 other Ukrainian cities in a fresh wave of attacks. Details of Russia's latest strikes on targets across Ukraine were reported by the Russian state news agency TASS on August 28. Ukraine's defense ministry said, and I quote, "Last night, the Russian armed forces launched a massive strike using high-precision, ground-based, air-based, and sea-based high-precision weapons, as well as strike drones, resulting in the destruction of facilities belonging to Ukraine's military-industrial complex, metallurgical and oil refining industries, and logistics centers in the cities of Kyiv, Boryspil, Zaporizhzhia, Kremenchuk, Kryvyi Rih, and Ilyachevka." Russian servicemen struck infrastructure facilities in the ports of Odesa, Chornomorsk, and Reni used for the delivery and storage of military cargo and fuel and lubricants intended to supply the Ukrainian military, as well as energy facilities supporting the operation of ports in the Odesa region. The Russian armed forces hit 24 storage facilities in the ports of Odesa and Chornomorsk, containing military equipment intended for the Ukrainian military, unquote. Russia reportedly struck facilities at the Ukrainian ports of Odesa, Chornomorsk and Reni, targeting infrastructure along some of the country's most strategically important Black Sea and Danube shipping routes. Moscow claimed that Ukrainian port facilities were being used to receive and distribute military cargo, fuel supplies and lubricants intended to support Kyiv's war effort. A drone assembly plant in Kyiv, reportedly involved in manufacturing Hornet loitering munitions, was also said to have been among the targets hit in the latest Russian strikes. Hornet munitions are described as wide-area anti-tank weapons designed to identify, engage and destroy armored vehicles operating across a designated battlefield zone. Russian forces also struck Ukrainian steel mills in Zaporizhzhia and Kryvyi Rih, according to a report carried by the Russian state news agency TASS. Moscow claimed that industrial facilities in Zaporizhzhia and Kryvyi Rih had supplied materials and products used for Ukrainian military manufacturing and defense production. An oil refinery in Ukraine's central city of Kremenchuk allegedly suffered damage after it was targeted in the latest wave of Russian bombing. Kyiv residents were forced to shelter inside metro stations during a rare all-day Russian aerial attack, as the capital remained under threat for hours. Explosions in Kyiv began around 3 a.m. on August 27 and continued into the morning, according to the Kyiv Independent, keeping residents on alert through the night. Russia targeted Kyiv with jet-powered drones, while powerful blasts and the sound of Ukrainian air defense fire could be heard across the city. Drone debris was found across several Kyiv districts, including Podilsky, Shevchenkivsky, Holosievsky and Pechersky, according to local reports. The attack also damaged 2 schools and a sports facility, while a fire was reported near the Valery I. Lobanovsky Stadium amid the continuing strikes. Russia also struck warehouses in Kyiv Oblast, injuring at least 1 person, according to Ukraine's State Emergency Service. After midday, another drone fell onto a major road in Kyiv's Holosievsky district, according to Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko. The latest assault came just days after Russia struck a shopping center in Kryvyi Rih, killing at least 16 people in another deadly attack. The strikes also came days after Trump's CIA chief traveled to Russia, reportedly for discussions involving Ukraine and Iran. The real purpose behind CIA Director John Ratcliffe's surprise Russia visit appears to have been revealed through U.S. media reports. According to the Wall Street Journal, Trump's intelligence chief traveled to Moscow to warn Russia against launching an attack on any NATO member state. The visit followed U.S. intelligence assessments suggesting that Putin could attempt a limited assault to test NATO's collective resolve. Those assessments indicated that a potential Russian move could come within the next few years, with some concerns focusing on the possibility of escalation as early as this fall. A possible Russian operation could range from a major cyber attack to a small-scale military incursion, rather than an immediate full-scale war with NATO. Reports suggest that any such action could involve one of NATO's Baltic member states, located on Russia's northwestern frontier. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are seen as the most vulnerable potential flashpoints, given their geography, proximity to Russia, and central role in NATO's eastern defenses. Moscow has repeatedly threatened Western governments backing Ukraine, portraying their military assistance to Kyiv as direct involvement in the war. Under NATO's Article 5 principle, an armed attack against one alliance member is considered an attack against every member, meaning a strike on a Baltic state could trigger a collective response. U.S. officials are also reportedly concerned that Western ammunition shortages caused by the Iran war may influence Putin's calculations about NATO's ability to respond quickly. During his Moscow visit, Ratcliffe also urged Russian officials to reduce their military and economic support for Iran, including transfers of weapons and defense technology. Kremlin-linked sources told Bloomberg that Vladimir Putin is preparing to escalate Russia's war in Ukraine after concluding that peace negotiations have reached a dead end. A growing number of Russian officials reportedly believe that a tactical nuclear weapon could be considered as a last resort measure if Moscow's position deteriorates further. However, Bloomberg reported that there are currently no signs Russia is preparing to use tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Russia has repeatedly issued nuclear threats since the invasion began, using its nuclear arsenal as a tool to intimidate Ukraine and discourage deeper Western military support. Details of Putin's reported escalation plans were carried by Meduza on August 27, citing Bloomberg's reporting and Kremlin-linked sources. Moscow's emerging strategy is reportedly based on the assessment that all meaningful frameworks for a negotiated peace settlement have effectively collapsed. Russia is now weighing an intensification of powerful conventional ballistic missile attacks against Kyiv, rather than an immediate nuclear escalation. Potential targets reportedly include central Kyiv as well as critical infrastructure in other Ukrainian cities, which could increase risks for civilians and essential services. Kremlin sources said, and I quote, "Russian President Vladimir Putin will not end the war under pressure from economic sanctions or Ukrainian strikes on Russian oil refineries and logistics networks." Moscow increasingly views Ukrainian strikes as attacks by NATO member states because alliance members supply Kyiv with weapons and intelligence. Every mechanism for peace talks has collapsed, leaving the two warring sides back where they started. The Kremlin believes that it has already made concessions during the war and that each one weakened Russia's position. In the absence of diplomacy, Moscow sees few ways to achieve its military goals other than further escalation. The intensifying Ukrainian strikes have led a growing number of Russian officials to believe that Putin could eventually take the extreme step of using tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine.
Upgrade your news experience with the all-new HT app. Download now.